Billionaire orders, in foreign language, to humiliate the black waitress. He never expected this reply when a billionaire walked into her restaurant and ordered in French just to embarrass her in front of everyone. This single mother waitress did something he never saw coming. Her response didn't just silence the room, it changed both their lives forever. What she said next would teach him the most expensive lesson money can't buy. This is the story of Sarah Martinez, a woman whose grace under pressure proved that dignity cannot be purchased, only earned. Stay with me because what happens next will restore your faith in humanity. Sarah Martinez's alarm clock pierced the quiet darkness at 4:30 a.m., the same as it had every morning for the past 3 years. She reached over to silence it quickly, careful not to wake Miguel, who slept peacefully in the small bedroom they shared in their modest apartment. Through the thin curtains, the Philadelphia streets were still dark, lit only by the amber glow of streetlights. At 32 years old, Sarah had learned to move through her morning routine with practiced efficiency. She showered quickly in the tiny bathroom where the faucet dripped, no matter how tightly she turned it, dressed in her pressed black slacks and white blouse, and pulled her dark hair back into a neat bun. In the mirror, she saw the same face she'd seen for years, warm brown eyes that still held kindness despite everything, skin that showed the first fine lines of stress and sleepless nights, and a determined set to her jaw that she'd inherited from her mother. Before leaving, Sarah paused at Miguel's bedside. Her 9-year-old son lay curled under his blanket, his small inhaler on the nightstand beside him, a constant reminder of the asthma that had plagued him since he was 4. She bent down and kissed his forehead gently, breathing in the sweet scent of his hair. On his desk, illuminated by the nightlight, sat a school project about doctors and hospitals. Miguel wanted to be a pediatrician. He'd told her this with such conviction that her heart had both soared and broken, soared because he dreamed big, broken because she knew how impossible that dream seemed from where they stood. The bus ride to Humiliate, the upscale French restaurant where she worked, took 45 minutes. Sarah used the time to review her French vocabulary on a worn notepad. Her late grandmother Marie had been French-Canadian, and Sarah had grown up hearing the language in her home. After her grandmother passed 2 years ago, Sarah had made it her mission to maintain the language, partly to honor Marie's memory, partly because she believed knowledge was the one thing no one could take from you. Humiliate restaurant stood in the heart of the business district, a gleaming establishment with floor-to-ceiling windows and an interior that spoke of wealth in hushed tones. Crystal chandeliers, white linen tablecloths, fresh flowers on every table. Sarah had worked there for 3 years, and while the pay wasn't extraordinary, the tips from wealthy business clients kept her and Miguel afloat barely. "Morning, Sarah," called Marcus, the head chef, as she entered through the staff entrance. Marcus was a kind man in his 50s who'd immigrated from Jamaica and understood the weight of building a life from nothing. "Morning, Marcus," Sarah replied, tying on her black apron. "Busy day ahead?" "Always is on Fridays. Board meetings, power lunches, the usual parade of suits with expense accounts." He paused, studying her face. "You look tired. Miguel okay?" Sarah nodded, managing a smile. "Just a long week. He's fine. Had a small asthma episode Wednesday night, but it passed." Marcus frowned with concern, but the conversation was cut short by the arrival of the restaurant manager Gerald, a thin man in his 40s who ran Humiliate with military precision. "Team meeting. 5 minutes," Gerald announced. "We have several VIP reservations today, including the Carlisle party at noon. I expect excellence." The name Carlisle made several staff members straighten their postures. Richard Carlisle was a technology billionaire, a man whose face appeared regularly in business magazines and financial news. His company had revolutionized data security, making him one of the wealthiest men under 50 in America. He was also known for being demanding, exacting, and according to restaurant industry gossip, sometimes cruel to serve his staff. Sarah had served wealthy, difficult customers before. She'd learned to keep her face neutral, her service impeccable, and her dignity intact no matter what was said to her. She was good at her job, professional, efficient, and knowledgeable about the menu and wine list. She'd never had a serious complaint. As the morning progressed and lunch service began, the restaurant filled with its typical clientele, executives in expensive suits, ladies who lunched in designer clothes, business deals conducted over seared scallops and vintage wines. Sarah moved between her tables with practiced grace, remembering orders anticipating needs and smiling politely even when customers barely acknowledged her presence. At 11:55, Gerald approached her station. "Sarah, you'll be taking the Carlisle table. 6 guests, main dining room. Be sharp." Her heart did a small skip, not from nervousness exactly, but from the awareness that high-profile tables could make or break a day's tips. She nodded calmly. "Understood." When Richard Carlisle walked through Lumiere's entrance at precisely noon, the energy in the room shifted. He was tall, probably 6'2", with salt and pepper hair expertly cut, wearing a suit that cost more than Sarah made in 3 months. His face was angular and handsome in a severe way, with blue eyes that seemed to assess and calculate everything they observed. He was accompanied by 5 other business associates based on their conversation about quarterly projections and market share. Sarah greeted them with professional warmth as they were seated. "Good afternoon, gentlemen. Welcome to Lumiere. My name is Sarah, and I'll be taking care of you today. May I start you with some water, sparkling or still?" Most of the men responded politely, but Richard Carlisle studied her with an expression she couldn't quite read, something between curiosity and dismissal. She brought their waters and returned with menus, explaining the day's specials with the same practice ease she always employed. Then it happened. Richard Carlisle looked directly at her, his eyes sharp and cold, and began ordering in rapid French. "Je voudrais commencer avec les escargots suivis du coq au vin, et pour le vin, apportez-moi votre meilleur Bordeaux. Quelque chose qui vaut réellement le prix exorbitant que vous facturez." The table fell silent. A few of his companions looked uncomfortable. One smirked. It was clear what was happening. Carlisle was testing her, humiliating her, assuming she wouldn't understand. He expected her to stammer, to admit she didn't speak French, to feel small in front of these powerful men. The moments stretched out, and Sarah felt every eye in the nearby tables turning toward them. She felt the familiar heat of embarrassment trying to rise in her chest, the old instinct to apologize, to retreat. But then she thought of Miguel. She thought of her grandmother Marie, who'd told her that dignity was not given, it was claimed. She thought of every person who'd ever underestimated her because of her uniform, her position, her background. Sarah looked Richard Carlisle directly in the eyes, her voice calm, clear, and perfectly fluent. "Certainement, monsieur," Sarah began, her French flowing as naturally as water. "Les escargots sont extra. Les escargots sont excellents aujourd'hui préparés avec du beurre à l'ail et du passil frais. Pour le coq au vin, puis-je suggérer qu'ils soient accompagnés des nôtres. Purée de pommes de terre à l'ail. Elle complémente merveilleusement la richesse du plat." She paused, letting the perfect pronunciation settle in the air before continuing. "Concernant les vins, je vous recommanderais notre Château Margaux 2010. C'est effectivement coûteux, mais contraisant, mais contrôlant à votre supposition. Chaque centime en votre la peine, bien sûr, si vous préférez quelque chose de moins cher, nous avons de Juan." The translation echoed in the shop silence. "Certainly, sir. The escargots are excellent today, prepared with garlic butter and fresh parsley. For the coq au vin, may I suggest it be accompanied by our garlic mashed potatoes? It complements the richness of the dish wonderfully. Regarding the wine, I would recommend our Château Margaux 2010. It is indeed expensive, but contrary to your assumption, every penny is worth it. Of course, if you prefer something less expensive, we have other options." The table had gone completely still. Richard Carlisle's face, which moments before had worn an expression of smug superiority, now showed unmistakable shock. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. The color rose in his neck. Whether from embarrassment or anger, Sarah couldn't tell. She maintained her professional composure, her notepad ready, her expression neutral and polite. "Shall I give you gentlemen a few more moments to decide? Or may I take the rest of your orders?" One of Carlisle's companions, a younger man with glasses, cleared his throat awkwardly and ordered in English, his voice uncertain. The others followed suit, their previous confidence diminished. When Sarah turned to Carlisle last, he met her eyes with an expression she still couldn't quite decipher. "The escargots and coq au vin will be fine," he said in English, his voice tight. "And the Margaux." "Excellent choice, sir," Sarah said with the same professional courtesy she showed every customer. I'll have those orders in right away. As she walked toward the kitchen, she could feel her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of standing her ground. In the kitchen, Marcus took one look at her face and pulled her aside. What happened out there? You look like you just faced down a lion. Sarah exhaled slowly. Table 6. Carlyle. He ordered in French to embarrass me. Didn't expect me to answer back. Marcus's eyes widened, then crinkled with a fierce smile. And you did? Fluently. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. My grandmother would have been proud. That woman taught you well. Marcus squeezed her shoulder. Hold your head high, Sarah. You just taught a billionaire that money doesn't buy respect, it's earned. Service continued, but Sarah could feel the change in the atmosphere. Other servers had heard what happened, and word spread quickly through the staff. Gerald pulled her aside briefly, his expression concerned. Is there a problem with table 6? No problem, sir. Just a customer who spoke French. I responded appropriately. Gerald studied her, then nodded slowly. Maintain your professionalism. That's all I ask. When Sarah returned to serve the courses, Richard Carlyle was noticeably quieter than before. His companions carried most of the conversation, discussing market trends and competitor analysis. She served each course with the same meticulous care she always provided escargots, perfectly presented, cocoa vin aromatic, and beautifully plated, wine poured with proper ceremony. Each time she approached the table, she felt Carlyle watching her, but he said nothing beyond polite acknowledgments. The meal proceeded without incident until dessert, when something unexpected happened. As Sarah cleared the final plates, Richard Carlyle spoke, this time in English, his voice lower than before. The meal was excellent. Please convey our compliments to the chef. I certainly will, sir. Thank you. She paused, then added, Is there anything else I can get for you, gentlemen? Coffee, port. Coffee, please, Carlyle said, and then, after a brief hesitation, Where did you learn French? The question hung in the air. His companions looked at him with surprise apparently. Personal questions to service staff weren't his usual style. Sarah could have deflected, kept her answer short and professional, but something in his tone, perhaps genuine curiosity, perhaps the remnant of shame, made her answer honestly. My grandmother was French-Canadian, Sarah said simply. She raised me partly, and I grew up speaking both languages. After she passed, I continued studying to honor her memory. Carlyle nodded slowly, something shifting in his expression. I see. That's admirable. It wasn't an apology, not exactly, but it was perhaps the closest thing to acknowledgement she would get. Sarah brought their coffees and presented the check, which Carlyle paid without examining it. When she returned with the receipt, there was a tip that made her breath catch. $500 on a $300 meal. She looked up, startled, but Carlyle and his party were already standing to leave. He didn't meet her eyes as he walked out, but something about his posture seemed different, less confident, more thoughtful. The rest of Sarah's shift passed in a blur. Other servers congratulated her, having heard various versions of what happened. Gerald said nothing but gave her an approving nod. When her shift ended at 4 p.m., Sarah changed quickly, eager to get home to Miguel. On the bus ride back, she counted her tips from the day, nearly $700 total, with Carlyle's contribution making up the bulk. It was more than she usually made in a week. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what she could do with it. Catch up on the electric bill. Buy Miguel new shoes for school. Maybe even put a little aside for the nursing program she'd had to abandon 3 years ago when Miguel's father left. But as the bus rumbled through the streets, Sarah's mind kept returning to the moment in the restaurant, not the confrontation itself, but the look on Carlyle's face afterward. She'd seen something there she recognized, the uncomfortable realization of being wrong about someone, of having judged too quickly. She wondered if he'd learn from it, or if his wealth and power would cushion him from any real reflection. Either way, she'd stood her ground, spoken her truth, and maintained her dignity. As her grandmother used to say, on ne peut pas acquérir les frais respect, ma chérie, on le gagne. Respect cannot be bought, my dear. It is earned. Sarah arrived home to find Mrs. Chen, the elderly neighbor who watched Miguel after school, sitting with him at their small kitchen table. Miguel was working on homework, his dark hair falling over his forehead as he concentrated on a math worksheet. "Mama," he called out, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Hi, baby," Sarah said, hugging him close and feeling the day's tension melt slightly. "How was school?" "Good. We learned about the circulatory system in science. Did you know the heart pumps about 2,000 gallons of blood every day?" His enthusiasm was contagious, his eyes bright with the wonder of learning. "I did not know that," Sarah said, smiling at Mrs. Chen over his head. "Thank you for watching him, Mrs. Chen." Chen waved off the thanks. They had an arrangement where Sarah helped her with English documents and technology in exchange for childcare. "He's a good boy. Did his homework, had his snack, but," she lowered her voice, "he had a small coughing spell around 3:30. Not bad, but I gave him the inhaler just in case." Sarah's smile faded slightly. "Thank you for taking care of him." After Mrs. Dinabu, Chen left. Sarah sat with Miguel while he finished his homework, then prepared their simple dinner pasta with vegetables and chicken, stretched to provide leftovers for tomorrow's lunch. As they ate, Miguel talked excitedly about the science lesson, about his friend Tyler at school, about a book he was reading about famous doctors. "Mama, when I become a doctor, I'm going to help kids who have asthma like me," Miguel announced between bites, "so they don't have to worry about breathing." Sarah's throat tightened with emotion. "That's a beautiful dream, my Joe." "It's not just a dream," Miguel insisted with the absolute certainty of childhood. "I'm going to do it. You always say I can do anything if I work hard enough, right?" "Right," Sarah agreed, though her heart ached with the knowledge of how many obstacles stood between her son and medical school. Hard work and education are the keys. That night, after Miguel went to bed, Sarah sat at their small kitchen table with her laptop, a refurbished model she bought 2 years ago. She opened her email and stared at the message she'd been rereading for weeks, an acceptance letter to the nursing program at Community College of Philadelphia. It was a part-time program designed for working adults, flexible scheduling, affordable tuition. Affordable, but not free. Even with financial aid, she'd need $3,000 for the first semester: books, fees, supplies. She'd been saving, but Miguel's inhaler medication alone cost $200 a month even with insurance. And last month their landlord had raised the rent by $50. Sarah pulled up her budget spreadsheet, a document she updated religiously every week. Income versus expenses. The numbers were stubborn, unforgiving. After rent, utilities, food, Miguel's medication, and his after-school care, there was almost nothing left. The tip from today would help, but it wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. She closed the laptop and rested her head in her hands. The exhaustion wasn't just physical, it was the weight of being solely responsible for another human being, of every decision having consequences, of dreams deferred again and again. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister, Elena, who lived in California. "How are you and my favorite nephew?" Sarah typed back, "We're good. Miguel is obsessed with becoming a doctor. How are you?" The response came quickly. "Still amazing that he wants to be a doctor. You must be so proud. Listen, I got a promotion, 20% raise, which means I can finally send you that money I promised. 500 next week?" Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. Elena had her own struggles, her own student loans and expenses. "That's amazing about your promotion, but you don't have to send money, use it for yourself. Family is family. Mom would have wanted us to help each other. It's coming, don't argue." Sarah sent back a heart emoji and a thank you, then allowed herself a quiet moment of gratitude. Between today's tips and Elena's help, she might be able to enroll in one class next semester. Just one class, but it would be a start. The following days fell into their familiar rhythm. Sarah worked her shifts at Lumiere, came home to Miguel, helped with homework, prepared meals, and squeezed in studying whenever possible. She'd requested information from the nursing program about taking one class at a time, and they'd confirmed it was possible, though it would take longer to complete the degree. On Tuesday, something unusual happened. Gerald pulled her aside before her shift. "Sarah, I had a request come through. Richard Carlisle specifically asked for you to serve his table today. He's reserved for 12:30. Sarah felt a flutter of surprise. "He requested me? Are you sure?" "That's what his assistant said when making the reservation." Gerald studied her face. "I don't know what happened last Friday, and I'm not asking, But whatever it was, handle it professionally. Of course. When Carlyle arrived, he was alone this time. He looked the same expensive suit, commanding presence, but his demeanor seemed different, less hostile. Sarah greeted him with the same professional courtesy she showed every guest. "Good afternoon, Mr. Carlyle. Welcome back to Lumiere." "Thank you, Sarah." He used her name deliberately. "I'd like to apologize for my behavior last Friday." The direct approach startled her. "Sir, I was rude," he continued, his blue eyes meeting hers directly. "I ordered in French to test you, to make you uncomfortable. It was arrogant and disrespectful. I'm sorry." Sarah stood very still, processing this unexpected apology. In 3 years of restaurant work, she'd experienced countless rude customers, but not one had ever returned to apologize. "I appreciate that, Mr. Carlyle. Thank you. Please call me Richard." He paused. "I was impressed by your French, and more than that, by your grace under pressure. You could have made a scene, filed a complaint. Instead, you maintained your professionalism and dignity." "That's my job, sir." "It's more than that," Richard insisted. "It's character, which brings me to why I wanted to speak with you. May I ask you a personal question?" Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "Are you working on any educational goals? College? Training programs?" The question was so unexpected that Sarah almost laughed. "That's quite a personal question." "I know. You don't have to answer. But I'm asking because my company has a foundation that provides educational grants to deserving individuals. After our interaction last week, I looked into Lumiere's staff not invasively, just public information. I saw you attended Temple University for 2 years before." He trailed off delicately. "Before I had to drop out," Sarah finished quietly. "Yes, I was studying nursing. My son was born, his father left, and I couldn't manage school and work and a baby." Richard nodded slowly. "And now, if circumstances were different?" Sarah's defenses rose slightly. She wasn't sure where this was going, and accepting charity from a man who tried to humiliate her felt complicated. "I've been accepted to a nursing program at the community college. Part-time. I'm trying to save enough to start." "How much do you need, Mr. Carlyle?" Richard, Sarah corrected. "I appreciate whatever this is, but I'm not comfortable." "I'm not offering charity," Richard interrupted gently. "I'm offering an opportunity. The Carlyle Foundation awards educational grants based on merit and potential. You speak multiple languages, you work full-time while raising a child, and you've been accepted to a nursing program. That qualifies. If you're interested, I can have my foundation coordinator contact you with information." Sarah wanted to say yes immediately, wanted to grab this unexpected lifeline with both hands. But years of being careful, of protecting herself and Miguel from disappointment, made her cautious. "I would need to know more details," she said carefully. "Of course, no strings attached, no obligations, just information." Richard pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "This is my foundation coordinator, Jennifer Hayes. Tell her I referred you. She'll explain the application process." He handed her the card, and Sarah took it with trembling fingers. "Thank you," she whispered. Richard smiled a real smile this time, not the cold expression from their first meeting. "No, thank you. You reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that every person deserves respect regardless of their position or profession. That's a lesson worth more than any business deal." Sarah called Jennifer Hayes the next day during her break, half expecting it to lead nowhere. But Jennifer was warm, professional, and genuinely interested in Sarah's story. They talked for 30 minutes about the nursing program, Sarah's goals, Miguel's aspirations, and the foundation's mission. "The Carlyle Foundation focuses on single parents pursuing healthcare education," Jennifer explained. "Richard's mother was a single mother who worked as a nurse. She raised him alone after his father died, and she's his inspiration for this work. We award grants that cover full tuition, books, and a modest living stipend." Sarah had to sit down. "Full tuition?" "Yes, we believe that financial stress shouldn't prevent capable people from entering healthcare professions. If you're selected, the grant would cover your entire nursing program associate degree or bachelor's, your choice. We have a competitive application process, but based on what Richard told me about you, I think you'd be a strong candidate. The application required an essay, transcripts, letters of recommendation, and an interview. Sarah spent the next 2 weeks pouring her heart into the essay, writing about her grandmother who taught her that education was freedom, about Miguel and his dreams, about wanting to serve others through nursing the way her grandmother had served their community. Marcus wrote her a glowing letter of recommendation. Her former academic advisor from Temple University wrote another. Sarah submitted everything with shaking hands, then tried not to think about it, tried not to hope too hard. 3 weeks later, Jennifer called. "Sarah, can you come to our office tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Richard would like to meet with you." Sarah's heart hammered. Is that good or bad?" Jennifer's voice was warm with a smile. "I think you should hear it from him." Sarah had to request the morning off from Gerald, who granted it with unusual grace. Apparently, Richard had become a regular customer and had mentioned Sarah's professionalism to the management. Mrs. Chen agreed to take Miguel to school. The Carlyle Foundation offices were in a gleaming downtown building, elegant but not ostentatious. Jennifer met Sarah in the lobby and escorted her to a conference room where Richard stood looking out the floor-to-ceiling windows. He turned when they entered, smiling. "Sarah, thank you for coming. Thank you for whatever this is," Sarah said, her voice uncertain. "Please, sit." Richard gestured to the table. Jennifer sat beside Sarah, opening a folder. Richard remained standing, his expression serious but kind. "Sarah, I've read your application. Your essay was exceptional, honest, eloquent, and deeply moving. Your academic record from Temple was excellent. Your recommendations were outstanding. The Foundation Committee was unanimous in their decision." He paused, and Sarah held her breath. "We'd like to award you the Carlyle Healthcare Education Grant, full tuition for your nursing degree program, books and supplies stipend, and a monthly living allowance of $1,000 to help with childcare and expenses while you're in school." The words didn't make sense at first. Sarah heard them, but they seemed to belong to someone else's life, not hers. What?" Jennifer reached over and squeezed her hand. "Congratulations, Sarah. You earned this." The tears came suddenly, overwhelming. Sarah put her face in her hands and sobbed, years of stress, fear, and exhaustion pouring out in waves. Jennifer moved her chair closer, offering tissues and support. Richard sat down across from them, his expression gentle. "I'm sorry," Sarah gasped between sobs. "I'm sorry, this is so unprofessional. This is human," Richard said quietly. "Don't apologize for feeling." When Sarah finally composed herself, mascara ruined and eyes red, she looked at Richard with something like wonder. Why are you doing this?" Richard was quiet for a moment before answering. "Because my mother worked 3 jobs to put me through school. Because she was brilliant and capable, and treated like she was invisible by people who should have known better. Because when I ordered in French that day, I saw my younger self arrogant, testing people, using my advantages to make others feel small. You stood your ground with grace, and it made me remember who I want to be, who my mother raised me to be." He leaned forward, his voice earnest. "You're going to be an excellent nurse, Sarah. And your son is going to see that hard work and dignity pay off. That's worth everything." The details came quickly after that. The foundation would pay the college directly for tuition. Sarah would receive the stipend monthly, starting when classes began in the fall semester. She could keep working part-time if she wanted, but it wasn't required. Jennifer would be her point of contact for any questions or concerns. When Sarah left the building 2 hours later, she felt like she was walking on air. She called Elena first, who screamed with joy so loudly that Sarah had to hold the phone away from her ear. Then she called Mrs. Chen and asked if she could pick Miguel up from school. Sarah wanted to be the one to tell him. At 3:15, Sarah waited outside Miguel's elementary school, probably the only parent there in the middle of a workday. When Miguel emerged with his backpack and saw her, his face split into a huge smile. "Mama, why are you here? Is everything okay?" Sarah knelt down to his level, taking his hands. "Everything is more than okay, my Joe. Mama has news." She told him about the grant, about nursing school, about how she'd be able to study and still take care of him. Miguel listened with wide eyes, and when she finished, he threw his arms around her neck. "You're going to be a nurse, like the nice lady at the doctor's office who helps me with my inhaler. Yes, exactly like her. And then I'll become a doctor, and we can work together." Miguel's imagination was already running. We can help people together, Mama. Sarah held him close, breathing in the scent of his hair and the promise of his dreams. Yes, baby, we'll help people together. That night, Sarah sat down and wrote a thank you letter to Richard, not an email, but an actual handwritten letter on nice stationery she bought specially. She thanked him for the opportunity, but more than that, she thanked him for seeing her as a person with potential, not just as a waitress. She told him about Miguel's reaction, about their shared dream of working in healthcare together. She ended the letter with a quote from her grandmother. La vraie richesse ne se mesure pas en argent, mais en biens touchés. True wealth is measured not in money, but in lives touched. The months that followed were both challenging and exhilarating. Sarah enrolled in the nursing program full-time, taking 4 classes that first semester. The workload was intense: anatomy and physiology, pharmacology, nursing fundamentals, and medical ethics. She studied late into the night after Miguel went to bed, creating flashcards, memorizing terms, practicing procedures. But for the first time in years, Sarah felt like she was building something, not just surviving. The monthly stipend from the foundation meant she could cut back her hours at Lumiere to weekend shifts only, giving her time to study and attend classes. Mrs. Chen adjusted her schedule to help with Miguel on the days Sarah had clinical rotations. Miguel thrived too. With less financial stress and more time with his mother, he flourished in school. His asthma stabilized with proper medication management. Sarah no longer had to choose between filling prescriptions and paying other bills. He joined the science club at school and talked endlessly about the experiments they conducted. Richard became an unexpected presence in their lives, though not in an intrusive way. He checked in occasionally through Jennifer, asking about Sarah's progress. When she aced her first semester with a 3.9 GPA, he sent a congratulatory note and a gift card to a bookstore for Miguel, for the future doctor, the note said. In the spring, the foundation invited Sarah to speak at their annual donor event. She was terrified but agreed. Standing before a room full of wealthy philanthropists in her best professional dress, Sarah told her story, not to seek pity, but to illustrate the power of opportunity. I grew up believing that education was the key to freedom, she told the assembled crowd. My grandmother taught me that knowledge was the one thing no one could take away. But life has a way of making you choose between dreams and survival. For years, I chose survival because I had a son who depended on me. She paused, finding Richard in the audience. He sat quietly, listening intently. Then I met someone who reminded me that I didn't have to choose. That with support and opportunity, I could do both. The Carlyle Foundation didn't just give me tuition money. They gave me back my future. They gave my son a mother who shows him every day that hard work and education pay off. They gave me the chance to become the person I was meant to be. The applause was thunderous. After the event, several attendees approached Sarah, asking about her studies, her son, her plans. One woman, a retired surgeon, offered to mentor her. Another, who owned a hospital network, promised to consider her for their residency program when she graduated. But the most meaningful moment came when Richard approached her quietly as the event was winding down. That was a powerful speech, he said simply. I meant every word. You changed our lives. Richard shook his head gently. No, I gave you an opportunity. You changed your own life. There's a difference. He paused, then continued. I've been thinking a lot about our first meeting, about the person I was that day. I'm ashamed of it. But I'm also grateful, in a strange way. You held up a mirror that forced me to look at myself honestly. We all have moments we're not proud of, Sarah said gently. What matters is what we do after. My mother used to say something similar. Richard smiled. She'd say, money can buy comfort, but only character buys respect. You have more character than most people I know, Sarah. Your son is lucky to have you. Thank you. That means more than you know. The nursing program continued to challenge Sarah, but she met each obstacle with determination. Clinical rotations were exhausting. 12-hour shifts in hospitals, learning to insert IVs, administer medications, care for patients in critical conditions. But Sarah loved it. She loved the direct impact, the ability to comfort someone in pain, the privilege of being present during life's most vulnerable moments. Her instructors noticed her dedication. Professor Williams, who taught pharmacology, pulled her aside after class one day. "Sarah, have you considered specializing in pediatrics? You have a natural empathy with children." The suggestion planted a seed. Pediatric nursing, caring for children like Miguel, helping families navigate medical challenges. It felt right, like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. In Miguel's fourth grade year, his school held a career day. Students could bring in a parent to talk about their profession. Miguel was beside himself with excitement. "Mama, you have to come. You can wear your scrubs and bring your stethoscope and tell everyone about being a nurse." Sarah took the day off from her clinical rotation and showed up at Miguel's classroom in her navy blue, scrubs, stethoscope around her neck, feeling both proud and nervous. She talked to the children about nursing, about how nurses help doctors care for patients, about the importance of science and math and compassion. "My mama is in nursing school," Miguel announced proudly to the class. "She's going to help kids like me who have asthma, and someday I'm going to be a doctor, and we'll work together." The simplicity and certainty of his belief made Sarah's eyes burn with tears. After the presentation, Miguel's teacher, Mrs. Mejel Rodriguez, approached her. "Miguel talks about you constantly," she said warmly, "about how hard you work, how you study together, how you're going to help people. You're giving him an incredible gift, not just stability, but a model of resilience and determination. I'm just trying to build a better life for us." "You're doing more than that. You're showing him that circumstances don't define you." That's powerful. As Sarah's second year of nursing school progressed, she began to think beyond graduation. She researched pediatric nursing programs, hospital systems known for excellent pediatric care, certification pathways. The foundation's support continued, unwavering. Jennifer checked in regularly, offering encouragement and resources. And through it all, Sarah never forgot the lesson from that day at Lumiere that dignity isn't granted by others. It's claimed by yourself. That respect is earned through character, not position. That everyone deserves to be seen as fully human, regardless of their job or circumstances. She thought about this especially when she encountered difficult patients or their families during clinical rotations. People who were scared, in pain, sometimes taking their fear out on the staff. Instead of taking it personally, Sarah remembered how fear could make people behave in ways they'd later regret. She responded with grace and competence, just as she had that day with Richard, and it made all the difference. Sarah graduated from the nursing program on a sunny May afternoon, 2 years after that fateful day at Lumiere. She walked across the stage in her cap and gown to receive her Associate of Science in Nursing degree, and when they called her name, she heard Miguel's voice above all others. "That's my mama." In the audience sat Elena, who'd flown in from California, Mrs. Chen, who'd become like a grandmother to Miguel, Marcus from Lumiere, who'd given her the day off and come to celebrate, and Richard, sitting quietly in the back, smiling with genuine pride. After the ceremony, they all gathered for a small celebration at Sarah's apartment, still modest, but now filled with nursing textbooks, medical reference guides, and a sense of accomplishment that made it feel like a palace. "A toast," Elena said, raising her glass of sparkling cider, "to my sister, who never gave up, who showed Miguel and all of us that it's never too late to pursue your dreams. To Mama," Miguel added, "the best nurse in the whole world." They drank, laughed, and shared stories. When the guests had left and Miguel was in bed, Sarah found Richard standing on her small balcony, looking out at the city lights. "Thank you for coming," she said, joining him. "It meant a lot. I wouldn't have missed it. You've accomplished something remarkable, Sarah." "We accomplished it," she corrected gently. "The foundation, Jennifer, you made this possible." Richard turned to face her. "I want to tell you something. That day at Lumiere, when you responded in French, do you know what you said that stuck with me most?" Sarah thought back. "The wine recommendation?" He smiled. "No. You said, contrairement, a votre supposition, contrary to your assumption. In those 3 words you challenged me to examine all my assumptions about you, about service workers, about who deserves respect and opportunity. You were right. I'd made assumptions based on your job, your uniform, your position." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "My mother died 3 years ago. Breast cancer. Before she passed, She told me that the measure of a person's success isn't their bank account, it's whether they left the world better than they found it. I'd lost sight of that, focused too much on profits and power. You reminded me what truly matters. Your mother sounds like she was a wise woman. She was. She would have liked you. Richard handed Sarah an envelope. This isn't from the foundation. It's personal. Inside was a letter of recommendation for Philadelphia Children's Hospital's pediatric nursing residency program, one of the most competitive in the country. It was signed by Richard Carlisle and Dr. Margaret Chen, the hospital's chief of pediatrics. Richard, I can't. You can, and you will. You've earned this, Sarah. Your clinical evaluations were outstanding, your grades were exceptional, and your passion for pediatric nursing is evident. Dr. Chen is a friend. I told her about you. She reviewed your qualifications, and she wants to interview you. The recommendation is real, based on merit. Sarah clutched the letter, overcome. Thank you for everything, for seeing me, for believing in me, for this chance. Thank you, Richard replied quietly, for teaching me what I'd forgotten, that every person has inherent worth and dignity, regardless of their circumstances. You didn't just change your life, Sarah, you changed mine too. 3 months later, Sarah started her residency at Philadelphia Children's Hospital. She worked in the pediatric respiratory unit, helping children with asthma and other breathing disorders, children like Miguel, whose lives could be transformed by proper care and compassion. On her first day, wearing her scrubs with Sarah Martinez, RN, embroidered on the pocket, she stood in the hospital corridor and let the moment sink in. From waitress to nurse, from barely surviving to building a career, from being underestimated to being valued. Miguel started 5th grade that fall with big dreams still intact. He joined the Junior Medical Explorers program at the hospital where Sarah worked, shadowing doctors and learning about different specialties. He talked constantly about medical school, about specializing in pediatric pulmonology, about working alongside his mother someday. Sarah no longer told him these were just dreams. Now she said, if you work hard and stay focused, you can absolutely do that. Because she'd learned that dreams backed by determination and opportunity weren't just fantasies. They were plans in motion. The Lumiere restaurant remained part of her story too. Sarah picked up occasional weekend shifts, not because she needed the money now, but because she wanted to stay connected to Marcus and the team who'd supported her. And because she never wanted to forget where she'd come from. One Saturday afternoon, a year after her graduation, Sarah was filling in at Lumiere when a young woman, a waitress, maybe 22 years old, approached her during a break. Sarah, can I ask you something? Of course. I heard you went to nursing school while working here, that you got some kind of scholarship. Is that true? Sarah smiled, recognizing the hunger in the young woman's eyes, the same hunger she'd felt not so long ago. Yes, it's true. How did you do it? I mean, I want to go back to school, but I can't afford it, and I don't know where to start. Sarah sat down with her and told the story, all of it. The struggles, the moment with Richard, the foundation, the hard work, the support system, the determination. And then she gave the young woman Jennifer's contact information. Tell her I referred you. The foundation is still awarding grants. If you're serious about your education, apply. Work hard on your application. Tell your truth. The young woman's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Thank you so much. As Sarah watched her walk away, clutching the contact information like a lifeline, she understood the full circle of her journey. She'd received help when she needed it, and now she could pass that forward. This was the true measure of success, not just achieving your own dreams, but helping others reach for theirs. That evening, Sarah picked up Miguel from the hospital's youth program, and they walked home together through the Philadelphia streets, talking about their days. Miguel told her about the heart surgery he'd observed from a safe distance, about the doctors who'd answered his questions, about his growing certainty that medicine was his calling. Mama, do you think Abuela Marie would be proud of us? Miguel asked suddenly. Sarah stopped walking and knelt down to look him in the eye. I know she would be, my Joe. She used to tell me that education is freedom, that knowledge is power, that dignity is something you claim, not something others give you. We're living proof of everything she taught me. Tell me about her again, Miguel requested, as he often did. So Sarah told him about his great-grandmother, about her strength, her wisdom, her French accent, her belief that every person deserved respect regardless of their position in life. She told him how Marie had worked as a home health nurse, caring for patients who couldn't afford fancy hospitals. How she'd spoken 3 languages and insisted Sarah learn them too. She sounds amazing, Miguel said when Sarah finished. She was. And do you know what she'd say about both of us? What? La vraie richesse ne se mesure pas en argent, mais en vies touchées. True wealth is measured not in money, but in lives touched. We're rich, Miguel, because we help people, and we'll keep getting richer every day we use our gifts to serve others. Miguel nodded seriously, understanding. At 10 years old, he already grasped what many adults never learned, that success isn't about accumulation, it's about contribution. As they reached their apartment building, a nicer one now in a safer neighborhood, Sarah felt a profound sense of peace. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been moments of despair, fear, and exhaustion, but there had also been kindness from unexpected places, strength she didn't know she possessed, and dreams that refused to die. She thought about Richard Carlyle, who tried to humiliate her and ended up changing both their lives, about the power of standing your ground with dignity, about the importance of second chances and the courage to examine your own prejudices. Most of all, she thought about the lesson she'd pass on to Miguel and to anyone else who would listen. Your circumstances don't define your worth. Your job doesn't determine your value. Your background doesn't limit your potential. What matters is your character, your determination, and your willingness to keep believing in yourself, even when others don't. True wealth, as her grandmother said, is measured in lives touched. And by that measure, Sarah Martinez was the richest woman in the world. The story of Sarah Martinez teaches us profound truths about human dignity, the power of perseverance, and the ripple effects of kindness. The lessons: first, never judge someone's worth by their profession or position. The waitress serving your table, the janitor cleaning your office, the cashier ringing up your groceries. Every person has a story, dreams, struggles, and inherent dignity that deserves respect. Second, how we respond to disrespect defines us more than the disrespect itself. Sarah could have reacted with anger or shame when Richard tried to humiliate her. Instead, she responded with grace and competence, maintaining her dignity while standing her ground. This response not only protected her self-worth, but ultimately changed both their lives. Third, education is a pathway to freedom. Sarah's grandmother was right. Knowledge is the one thing no one can take from you. Investing in education, whether for yourself or others, creates ripple effects that extend far beyond one person or one generation. Fourth, second chances and self-reflection can transform lives. Richard had the humility to recognize his mistake, apologize, and take meaningful action to make amends. His willingness to examine his own prejudices and assumptions turned a moment of cruelty into an opportunity for growth and service. Fifth, true wealth is measured in lives touched, not dollars accumulated. Sarah's journey from struggling waitress to pediatric nurse didn't just change her life, it changed Miguel's, Richard's, and every patient she'll care for throughout her career. That's real richness. Finally, your circumstances are temporary, but your character is permanent. Build the latter, and the former will change. Sarah never let her difficult circumstances diminish her dignity, her work ethic, or her dreams. That foundation of character became the platform for everything else. To you, dear viewer, if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs encouragement today. We all know someone who's struggling, working hard, trying to build a better life. Share Sarah's story with them as a reminder that perseverance pays off, that dignity matters, and that dreams are worth pursuing. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that celebrate the strength of the human spirit, the power of kindness, and the triumph of hope over hardship. Remember, treat every person you encounter with respect and dignity. You never know what battles they're fighting or what potential they carry. The waitress, the security guard, the housekeeper, they all deserve your courtesy and consideration. And if you're someone who's struggling right now, working hard but wondering if it will ever pay off, let Sarah's story remind you, keep going. Your breakthrough might be one act of dignity away. Thank you for watching. May you touch lives the way Sarah does with grace, competence, and unwavering belief in human potential. God bless you, and until next time, remember, the language of grace is universal, and every person deserves to be spoken to with respect.